There's been national controversy about educational testing and Common Core standards, teacher evaluation based on student performance on these tests. And there's going to be a lot of attention paid to it in the 2015 session of the Florida legislature. Let's discuss that. It's back on the table again. It's been on the table before, going back to Governor Bush, who initiated a lot of this, but it's going to be debated this year. Talk about that.
We're seeing signs from various people that they're willing to reopen the testing debate in Florida, which is kind of remarkable when you think about it. For those of us who've been around a while and were here when Jeb Bush was governor, I mean, if there's a signature issue that he had, it was educational accountability, and a large part of that was driven by standardized tests, measuring the students, making sure that they met certain thresholds, and ultimately the Governor Bush and other Republicans wanted to hold the teachers accountable for whether the teachers, whether the students showed learning gains. But there's been a very large backlash in the last couple of years on this issue. A lot of the Democrats, the teachers unions have always opposed this strict regimen of testing. But over the last couple of years, a lot of conservatives, and the Tea Party movement particularly, has really fought back against this heavy standardized testing. Part of that is the Common Core standards, which are a national system that Florida was bought into. And a lot of the Tea Party folks, some conservatives think that it's a top-down driven from Washington, which isn't really technically true how it all evolved, but regardless, it has created an enormous amount of political pressure. And now the Republican legislature, Governor Scott, are talking about things like doing fewer tests, still trying to keep an accountability element in this, but doing fewer tests, having students spend less time preparing to take tests and taking the test, and trying to revamp that system. It's very complicated, though.
Well, it almost sounds like you have two issues. On the one hand, you have the test, and whether it's the right kind of test and brings students' abilities out to compare to other people in our country and around the world. And the other is the amount of testing. Some people feel like they're tested to death. Some parents say, we're just tested, our kids are. And so they're looking at both sides of that issue.
Senator John Legg, who is the education K-12 chairman in the Senate, he oversees policy on the public school system, has filed a pretty expansive bill already. One of the things in that bill would limit the amount of time that students can be taking state and federal tests to, I believe it's 5% of their school hours. So he's trying to put a cap on how much time can be used up for testing. Another interesting part of that bill would slightly, not overwhelmingly, but slightly roll back requirements that were passed a few years ago that would hold teachers, base the assessments of teachers on how their students show learning gains on these tests. It would scale that back a little bit. And that has been a hot button issue with the teachers union from day one. And so they're looking at those sorts of things that could kind of de-emphasize the testing a little bit. Again, though, this is really complicated territory, because how do you find that sweet spot between having enough tests to make sure the kids are learning and showing the gains, and not having so much tests that they're spending all their time preparing for tests, and teachers are overwhelmed with the tests instead of being able to teach kids. So
it's a big issue. It really is. Thank you, Jim. For more news about Florida politics and government, visit the Advances section of our website.